You ready? Can you hear me? I love that noise. Before I go to my first slide, and I do have slides, I want to point out that this little strange little configuration of trails on the left is the Courtland Rural Cemetery, which is what I'm going to talk about. Those are not heliopads for helicopters. That's the cemetery I'm going to be speaking about. So this is the Courtland Rural Cemetery. It is located in downtown Courtland, right in the heart of the downtown city. It's 40 acres. It's 160 years old this year. It's an independent, not-for-profit cemetery. And as you can tell, it's a beautiful place to potentially spend eternity. And if you want to visit loved ones, it's a nice place to visit for a few minutes of quiet contemplation. So it's attractive, like cemeteries are supposed to be. Unfortunately, cemeteries of this sort have a tremendous amount of trouble. And there are thousands of them across the country. If they're supported by a church, that's one deal. If they're supported by a municipality, that's another. But there are a lot of independent cemeteries like ours that are suffering from a fair amount of practical issues and financial issues. First and foremost, a one-time sale. I have to put it this way, it's a little crass, but when you put a person in the ground and they pay you a fee to be put in the ground, it's a one-time source of revenue for the cemetery. That's like getting one cup of coffee and expecting refills for the rest of your life, in fact, to eternity. You put a person in the ground, you pay one time, and then the cemetery is supposed to somehow care for you for eternity thereafter. It's an unsustainable proposition from a business standpoint. If that weren't bad enough, fewer and fewer burials every year because of cremations. These days, about 40% of Americans are cremated, and most of those don't result in a burial. If that's not bad enough, we've got skyrocketing costs. So manpower issues, fuel costs, insurance costs, like every other business, like every other municipality. It's a formidable challenge. We get very little support from foundations, from the public, and from municipalities. Who wants to support a cemetery? It's a dying business, literally. People don't want to put money into causes where you're not changing lives or you're not saving lives. It's one of those kinds of abstract institutions. It sits there and we just expect it to be there in perpetuity. So basically, cemeteries of this sort are basically dying by degrees. But what if we took cemeteries, which are a single-use facility used by the dead, and turned them into multi-use facilities shared by the living? I think there's some interesting propositions and things that can happen when it happens. Moving left to right, bottom to top, what if they became genealogical centers? So the doors are open and you could go in and do as much research as you want to. What if there were kiosks so you could go in and enter an online memorial, or you could review online memorials and search through the database and look at folks who were buried in there? What if there was a grief support group? The thing about people go to these cemeteries and they bury their loved ones and then they disappear into the ether. What if right at the cemetery there you could get support for grief, or widow workshops, or things to help people after their loved ones have died? Folks just go off and disappear, and that's a need that's not being met generally in communities as well as it could be. What if on the upside, the winding roads in that cemetery, what if they became cemetrails so people could walk those trails? They can wrestle with the obesity, get some fresh air, all those kinds of things, actually improve your life and lengthen your life so you don't end up in the cemetery quite as soon. Make them into trails. And what if you're walking along the trails and you can see interpretive signs along the way to interpret history and people who are buried there and the interesting lives that they led. What if there were gardens, community gardens, so you can go in literally and smell the roses like we should be doing when we're alive? What if you could do birding? This cemetery I'm talking about is wonderful trees, all kinds of bushes and things. What if we put in birding boxes so people could basically go and visit and do bird watching? It's a hot trend, and it engages the community in the cemetery. What if you could walk your dog there? That's kind of a no-no, but it's possible if you put the rules in place and you put the infrastructure in place so that it's not disrespectful to the people who are buried there. And what about culture? My God, it could be a tremendous venue for culture. What if people did painting there and we encouraged people to do painting there? What if we had string quartets and people playing on a regular basis, suitable culture? What about theater? What about movies? Those kinds of things can happen in this wonderful green space in the middle of the city. It's not being done right now. We drive by and that's it. If we did all of that stuff, we can surmount all of the challenges that I mentioned, which is a significant win. Cemeteries today of this size and this history are basically a drag on communities. If you did all the stuff I just mentioned, they become an asset to the community. And last but not least, we give those cemeteries a new lease on life. And is there a better way to provide, for the dead that we've put in there? What better way to honor the dead that we've put in these cemeteries? And that's my talk. They gave me 3 minutes.